Hello everyone, good morning. This is Soham. So today I would like to welcome you to my capstone presentation, and the project is called ContractOS, the operating system for contract intelligence. So let us start. So let us first understand the problem. What are contracts? In simple terms, the contracts are the documents. Contracts are the backbone of every business relationship, but they are also one of the most misunderstood documents in any organization. A 50-page or 100-page outsourcing agreement contains obligation which is buried deep inside tables, definitions that transform meaning, and cross references that receive invisible dependencies. For example, talk about SLA penalties, pricing tiers, delivery schedules. Those are hidden inside some annexures, and those that nobody, as a normal people who doesn't have a background on the legal side, they do not understand or do not read it through the entire nitty-gritties. The clauses are scattered. They are cross-referenced. For an example, subject to section 5.2. If you see that kind of statement present in your house contract, do you really think that we'll read it through and cross-reference to that section 5.2? Most of us do not. So this is called a web of dependencies. The context is getting polluted entirely across the document. Define terms. Service provider. For an example, for an outsourcing contract, if somebody says service provider, that ideally means some outsourcing company, for an example, say TechServe. But does it also include their subcontractors? The definitions may define something else. No provenance. So when somebody says that the liability cap is 14 million, where exactly does it say? Which portion of the document does it quote saying that this is where you should look for the liability cap? Can I trust that provenance? So what are the existing tools available, and where they go wrong in the approach? They first do the keyword search. So it actually misses the indemnify. The searching for liability means shall indemnify equal to liability. That if you do a normal keyword search, you may miss that entire context. Document chatbot. They hallucinate a lot. There is no source grounding available. Normal approaches do flat embedding search, treats a 50-page contract document as a text blob. Manual review, which actually takes hours of inconsistent manual effort. So let us continue. All these existing tools fail at the same thing, separating what a contract says from what it means, from what someone thinks about it. This is where the contract OS comes into picture, the truth model. So it is a four-layer model that I propose here, which are the four layers are dependent on facts, bindings, inferences, and opinion. Facts, something like those are grounded in contract text, immutable, term for 24 months, for an example. Binding, the explicit semantic mapping, company equal to Acme Corp, company equal to TechServe. Inference, those are derived claim with confidence, something like expiry date. The opinion, that is where the contextual judgment comes into play. Missing force majeure, that ideally equivalent to a risk. Okay. So every answer that contract ways shows are auditable. Every claim is traceable to the source text. The architecture, quickly glance it through. So at the backbone, we do have a truth model On top of that, we have a data fabric. On top of that, extraction tools, agent layer, and then interaction layer, which I call it as UI. So the data fabric, I have used task graph, and typically the knowledge base is prepared from the contract documents, and I have used the task graph and d3.js for the graph visualization. Embedding index that has been done using FAIRS and MiniLM. Workspace store. This is a excellent scenario where, for an example, the contracts which are related, say Price Waterhouse Coopers, which is a multinational company, do have a global contract, and also they do have in kind of country specific contracts for India, Japan. So in the country specific contract, it may so have that there is a reference to the global contract. How will you identify that references? How will you identify those annexures? That is where the workspace store comes into play. We do have the LLM provider, that is, I have used Anthropic Claude. We do have extraction tools on top, which does fact extracting, binding, Claude classifications, cross-reference extracting, fact discovery, document parsing, PDF and docx. On top of that, we have agent reasoning layer, which is document agent, compliance agent, NDA triaging, and the draft agent. And then we do have a intuitive UI layer. We do have Copilot. We have Postman-like REST API is enabled, task graph visualization, the MCP servers, HTTP streaming, cross-contract document reporting a possibility entirely embedded inside cross ContractOS. Quickly moving to the three-phase extraction pipeline, the pattern extraction using regex, plus the structural parsing definition, dates, amounts. We do create facts, clauses, and then prepare the knowledge graph. In this phase, there is zero LLM calls. Then we do have a semantic indexing using the FAIRS and the mini LM L6v2, 384 dimensions vector, and that creates a part document index. Third one, the Anthropic Claude comes into play, which does the LLM discovery, hidden obligation finding, risk, and clause implications. Phase 1 or 2 are deterministic and reproducible. Phase 3 is AI augmented. It finds what pattern misses. So for an example, let me give you a scenario where and take you through quickly to the layout. So if you see the demo console, here there is the Postman-like API has been enabled, which can be trusted. Copilot, this is where the entire the documents gets loaded. You do have an option to upload contract, and then the Copilot visualization, and there are defined set of predefined findings, hidden facts, risk memo, triage NDA, obligations, and then there is a definition of review playbooks. Workspace, API console, task graph, and then you do have an option to generate a presentation from ContractOS itself. Coming quickly back to the problem statement. For an example, if the user does this contract indemnify the buyer for data breach, ContractOS extract facts from the document, resolve the bindings. It finds out service provider actually points to some service provider in the document, searches the FAIRS index for the indemnity related facts, reason with Claude, grounded in the extracted evidence, and then returns the answer with the providence chains, which is clickable to the source. Playbook compliance review. This is where ContractOS becomes intelligent. I have used the Claude's legal skills. You probably everybody heard of the knowledge-based knowledge plugins that Claude came up with in the month of Feb, and I took the inspiration from that legal playbook and prepared a legal playbook for any organization, and then the given contract will be vetted against that playbook for different finding out the risk metrics, finding out how can we better write that particular contract, etc. So this is where it gives you the green based on that playbook. The standard green means it is meeting the standard. Deviation marked by yellow, and red missing and unacceptable. The 10 clause types that are coming up here: liability, indemnification, confidentiality, termination, IP, data protection, force majeure, governing laws, assignment, and payments. Automated red lines, those are LLM generated alternative languages. The tune is more legal oriented with rationale and the fallback position for every yellow and red findings. Risk matrix 5 into 5 severity and likelihood scoring that has been prepared. Real-time streaming is de facto standard inside ContractOS. So NDA triaging screen that I have shown you quickly here, NDA triage NDA screen that actually does check of mutual obligations. Let me quickly share again. Sorry for that. My team is behaving odd. So hopefully you can see my screen again. So now again coming back here, the NDA triaging screen, which you see here as a triage NDA case, it does a mutual obligation, it does pattern plus LLM, standard carve-outs, pattern matching, term duration, pattern extraction, governing laws, pattern extraction, IP assignment, non-compete. It is done by the LLM analysis. And then the last but not the least is our indemnification and problematic provision, which is done by pattern and LLM. And then data protection agreement structure, that is structural and LLM driven analysis. So this ideally means green is the situation where based on that vetted context, you can auto approve. Yellow, expedite the review process. Red, we need a full legal review of that particular contract that is vetted against the playbook of the organization. Risk memo and obligation extraction, risk assessment memo, obligation extraction, hidden fact discovery, clause gap analysis. Then we do have an MCP server integration. So for the solution which doesn't need a UI, it can be integrated using my MCP server. And MCP server kind of exposes upload contract, which does upload and analysis, asking questions, question and answer with provenance, review against the playbook, triage NDA, discover hidden facts, extract obligations, generate risk memo, compare clauses, search artifacts, get clause gaps, generate report, load sample contracts. Let us quickly come to the demo. So leave aside the boring part of explanation. I would like to give you a demo of 3 to 4 scenarios that I could think of, a complex scenario. So for the first use case, I have taken a complex procurement framework document, which actually talks about a GBP 85 million procurement contract. And the scenario is something like, due to a recent interstate transport strike, a lorry that is carrying raw materials from our supplier called Global Source got delayed. That may happen. It is a very realistic scenario. Because of some transport strike, the supplier is unable to ship the material. The goods arrived at our godown 10 days late. We had to procure from a local vendor at some higher cost. And now I would like to understand what are my legal options based on the contract I have with the global source. Can I reject the late delivery? Can I cancel the order and claim my money back? Am I entitled to liquidate the damages? ContractOS actually analyzes the force majeure clauses, liquidated damage schedules, delivery obligation, rejection rights, and all with the provenance back specific contract section. Let me quickly show you in a demo. So let us move quickly. I will go ahead and upload the contract. These contracts are all prepared using Legal Bench and the contract underlie as my backend data. So this PDF that you see, the complex procurement framework, it talks about uh, different parties. As you see, the legal obligation, discount rates, delivery lead time is a complex document with multiple tables, multiple clauses, facts present in here. As soon as I uploaded the documents, ContractOS was able to index the data properly. It can generate the facts, clauses, binding words. It created the entire embedding in phase vector DB. So now let me ask ContractOS a very obvious question that we have already discussed. The scenario that we have already discussed here, the due to a recent strike, something get delayed, and then what are my options? So it is doing the analysis as you see. It is searching inside the task graph for relevant facts. Fast embedding search that 500 plus index facts. Reading the contract context, it is trying to identify the context. Reasoning, then the last piece is the reasoning with the LLM, which is the Anthropic Claude. Synthesize the answer from the extracted evidence with the provenance stacking. So now, as you quickly see, it came up with an executive. Just hold on a second. Let me share my entire screen again. Sorry for that. As you have seen, it does the reasoning completion. It comes up with the executive summary, and then the summary says, based on the contract, you have a strong legal option for 10-day late delivery. Rejection rights, I do have. You can reject the late delivery based on the contract allows the buyer to cancel the purchase order for deliveries delayed more than 15 days. But your 10-day delay falls under 6 to 15 days. It is actually clearly stating that it is not greater than 15 days. It is within the 15 days boundary. It is 10 days delay. So what are my rejection rights? Liquidated damages, cancellations, cost recovery, etc. And then this is the provenance change, the delivery point. Table row, it is exactly taking me late delivery greater than 15 days, where it late delivery 6 to 15 days and 1% PO value per day. So let me ask my contract with a follow-up question, which is obvious. What about the liquidated damages specifically? So let me ask a question. So the question is something like, what are the liquidated damages provision if delivery is late by 10 days? How is the penalty calculation? The idea is, will it be able to identify this 1% PO value use case? So again, it does the reasoning, searching the task graph hierarchy. It is uh, trying to generalize the context, retrieving the top K facts, reasoning with the LLM, and then as you see, it came up with it's pretty fast, 10 to 15 seconds, came up with the exact executive summary. For a 10-day late delivery, the liquidated damages are calculated at 1% of the purchase order. And you see here, it is clearly defined. Days 1 to 5 days, 0.5 per day, 6 to 15 days late, payment mechanism, blah. And if I see the provenance, it can identify the table clearly, and then the provenance change is been identified pretty easily. Now let me go to the playbook review section that we have all talked about. This is the review against the playbook. If I click on that, it does the review of this particular contract against the org playbook. And again, just reminding you, I have utilized the legal playbook governed by the Claude and just modified that a bit to kind of align with the ecosystem that we are talking about. So obviously, so it is now doing a review. It is loading the playbook positions. Playbook is loaded, and then it is trying to classify the deviation of the existing contract against the playbook. 0, 3 yellow and 7 reds. It's identified. Now it is computing the risk profile against severity and likelihood, this matrix. Now building the negotiation strategy, and just think about it. To prepare all this using a human, it's an cumbersome, it is not repeatable, it is very kind of time consuming. So as you could clearly see, the review this contract against the playbook, it came up with 0 green, 3 yellow, 7 reds, overall risk is high, tier, and then it talks about the different missing limitation, liability. It suggests how to write it, how to better form the sentences, how to better form based on the legal definitions, legal cues, etc. And it also rationally gives the rationale why it is asking what it is asking for, the fallback, and then it talks about the missing data protection laws, which is not present here, indemnification liability, and fallback scenarios. And if I would like to show you the last bit, it is giving you the negotiation strategy. Tier 1, it is suggesting which are the must-have things that we need to add it in the contracts. Those are deal breakers. Strong negotiation points. It is suggesting to add the governing laws, confidentiality, payment terms. Tier 3, nice to have concession candidates, force majeure, termination rights. Approach lead with the Tier 1 as non-negotiable, bundle Tier 2 items for leverage, and use the Tier 3 as trade-off. Its supplier register critical changes. Okay, now similarly we do have the risk obligation, risk memo, triage, NDA, etc. There are quick questions available. If I see who are the parties to this agreement, it can identify obvious things. Uh, Let it do the LLM reasoning quickly. It will identify who are the parties, and as you see, it will go above and it will talk about the parties to the framework are buyer, Pinnacle Manufacturing Group PLC, suppliers, Global Source Industrial Supply, and where from it is coming. It is coming from the document, and it is giving you the exact provenance. Okay, so these are the quick fire. It is pre-computed. Let me share back again. Apologies for that. Okay, now come to the second scenario. I'll upload another document, which is an typically IT contract document, which is pretty complex. So let me click on it. I'll show the IT outsourcing contract now. Okay, this IT outsourcing contract is again a pretty complex document. Terms, renewal, scope. It is giving you the different location where the outsourcing company is present, and then as you see here, so it is something like a $47.5 million IT outsourcing services agreement between a Meridian Global Holding in New York and TechSub Solutions in India. Okay, if you ask for parties here, it can quickly identify what I just told. The two parties, Meridian Global Holding based in New York and the TechSub Solution in India. It quickly identify, as you see, the parties of this agreement to the client, the service provider, IT outsourcing company, the present in here. And if you can quickly go right, effective dates, and then it takes off, and then the Meridian Global Holdings. Okay, now let me give you a typical scenario. So the data breach situation. So something like here is our second scenario. Takes up our outsourcing vendor has experienced a data breach. 50K customer record have been compromised, including the PII, personally identifiable information, are also compromised. Their SLA specifies that 15 minutes response time for severity 1 incidents, but they took entirely 3 full days to notify us. That's a violation of both SLA and 24-hour breach notification requirement as part of the data protection law. So, as a vendor, I would like to understand, as a Meridian authority, I would like to understand: can we terminate the contract for the cause? What damages can we claim? And critically, does the liability cap apply to the data breaches? Okay, so let me ask this question directly to the ContractOS. So our vendor takes it talks about the data breach, 50K customer record with PII, and under the SLA clauses, what options do I have? So again, it is doing the reasoning based on the facts available, reading the contract context, reasoning with the LLM. That will soon start. And then you come up with the facts. So clearly it is telling, yes, you can terminate for causes based on the multiple grounds. The agreement allows immediate termination if the service provider commits material breach and fails to cure within 30 days. And it is showing exactly which body reference that is pointing to. Suppose material breach and takes a 3-day delay in notification violates 24-hour breach notification. So where from it finds out all these details? It's from the document, obviously. As you see, commits a material breach of the agreement, 30 days of receiving written contracts. It talks about service provider gross negligence, willful misconducts. It talks about notify client within 24 hours becoming aware of the breach. And then it talks about data breach notification in the event of personal data breach, that is a PII violations. Liability clauses, consequential damages. Okay, so as you see, the ContractOS is smart. It can identify the deep data hidden inside clauses, hidden inside some severity level legal agreement documents. It can find out the indemnification clauses. Yeah. So now this is a situation number two. Now let me show you the cross document, how it is working together. So we do have the procurement document PDF that I have uploaded, and the IT outsourcing. I have clicked on this. As you see, compared to contracts, the button is enabled. So now we'd like to compare between these two contracts, and it actually can identify, it can read through the contracts, both the contracts, and find out what are the options available there, which one is giving us more composer in terms of the legal benchmarking, and which one needs some more detailed legal review. Okay, so it is now loading the clauses from both the contracts. And then, as you see, it quickly identified the cost contract comparison sheet. So 3-year initial term with 1 year in kind of extension, and 5-year successive to renewal. Contract 1 heavily favors buyer with unilateral extension rights and shorter commitments, whereas contract 2 requires mutual consent, creating more balance and potential uncertain renewal. And then termination rights. As you see, contract 1 gives buyer broad termination rights based on the quality metrics. Contract 2 ties the termination to a sustained financial impact, providing more predictability but potentially allowing longer underperformance. So this is where the LLM comes into play. It can understand the context and then create the executive view and gives you the detailed review. So it talks about the intellectual property rights, it talks about the data protection and privacy, and it gives you a summary. The procurement framework heavily favors buyer with the unilateral extension rights, and contract 2 is more favorable for balanced, sustainable long-term relation. So this is how the cost contract analysis is working. Now, let me ask a question which requires a cost contract finding out. So let me give the same scenario where the vendor delivery is delayed, the first scenario, and let me ask the same contract here as well. If vendor delivery is delayed due to a force majeure event, like a transport strike, compare my options under both contracts. Which one gives me stronger termination rights? Again, it is doing the analysis across the documents, and let us understand what it comes back with. It obviously comes back with proper details. For outsourcing agreement, transport affecting blah, not to qualify for the most Azure. I can analyze a single IT outsourcing company, and then the facts and other stuffs are coming back here. So this is the core. Our contract ways can understand the multi-document and then able to find out the answer to the question. Moving towards our task graph, I can quickly give you. Let me update the same complex procurement one, upload and start indexing. It can, as you see, it can create the D3JS visualization pretty quickly. It has clauses, it has clause references, it has facts, it's on cross references, how they are related. Now let me ask the same question which I asked the our age-old strike scenario. It is again doing the same thing, finding out the details from the vector, and then it is liaising with LLM to understand and prepare the executive summary. So a different view from the Copilot, I would like to show the entire graph path. So as you see, as soon as the result came up, it is actually pointing out the entire solution, the facts, how it is kind of blinking the actual facts, how it is finding out the relation. So if I click on the provenance chain, it can directly zoom in and then showcase the facts-led delivery and other stuffs. So a different way to look and feel. Now I can have different ways to see the data. radial view, hierarchical view, right? I can only see the clauses, I can only see the bindings. These are the options available. Okay. Now the moving back towards the MCP things, I would like to quickly showcase you the cursor MCPs. These are the MCPs that is available, load sample, last question, etc. that we have already gone through. Uh, I have used draw.io MCP for preparing the architecture diagram quickly. Now moving back to our presentation. So we have gone through demo scenarios, we have done the cross-contract intelligence, we have briefly gone through that. By the numbers, this is the code that I have written. It is entirely TDD driven. 794 test cases, entirely the integration unit, integration contract, API tests been written. 34 API endpoints, 13 MCP tools, 50 plus real NDAs against which the solution is tested. 9.8K lines of production code, 14.8K lines of test code, 63 Python modules, and 13 dev phases completed. I have used the GitHub spec kit to prepare the solution, prepare the constitution, to give the best practices, the solid pattern, the different design patterns to prepare the OOP type of Python code, modularize it, and then prepare the different phases, then break down to task, then start the implementation. The entire spec driven development is followed. Now the technology stack that is used is Python, Fast API, Anthropic Claude, Fierce Vector Search, Sentence Transformers, SQLite, Python docx for docx parsing, Mu PDF for PDF parsing, SSE for real world streaming, Fast MCP for the model context protocol, D3 for the graph visualization, Docker for the containers. Test driven development, entire thing is developed using TDD fashion, unit, integration, benchmark, contract. So the 1.5x test code against the original source code that has been written. Let me quickly 50% real NDS that I have used for. We have gone through the demo, and what next? As I, it's not yet in a position where I want ContractOS to be in. I have done phase 1 to phase 13, extraction, Q&A, playbook review, NDA triage, MCP streaming. The base is there. What I want to do is contract families. I would like to prepare that, master agreements, amendments, DAGs, multi-tenant workspace, clause library, and then portfolio analytics. So typically, I would like to prepare an entire legal bench out of this ContractOS solution. So feel free to join me. Feel free to build this together. I am open for any suggestion, any feedback. And don't just read the contracts, understand them. So now if you have any contract, be it an apartment contract, be it an house that you are recently bought, land you are recently bought, now it has 60 to 100 pages of contracts, many data present in there. Don't hesitate to try out ContractOS. Give the contract. It is fully open source. It is fully open source hosted in the GitHub. The entire README is present, how to run with the architecture, how the MCPs are enabled. So you can utilize that fully, and it's an operating system for the contract intelligence. Join hands with me. I would be more than happy to collaborate and co-develop the entire solution. Thank you. Good luck and best day.